Hey everyone, um, me again. So I want to explain a little bit about my journey, right? So you know, anyone who watches me is obviously knows I've been doing this for a while, and I kind of like do a load and then come in and then don't, and then kind of come and do some more. And what I've learned is that brain is an extremely clever bit of kit, and that's when I mean it's clever. I mean it's clever separate from you. And when I say that, is that I honestly believe that we're not in control of a lot of things. Not naturally, we can be, but I think of a lot of people, especially in the modern day world, with all its distractions and all its reasons not to deal with um, the things that control you. Your brain kind of has, or your brain and its kind of very basic um, software can just run free and do what it wants, right? That's why there's so much anxiety in the world, so much anxiety and so much fear and anger and kind of shame and disappointment, right? Because one thing I learned when I became very ill with my thyroid was I realized that the thoughts that were going through my head, especially when they were quite kind of like suicidal thoughts, like life-ending thoughts, like I didn't want that. Like that was not something I wanted. I had a child and a job and people I cared about, but my brain decided that it wanted to put these thoughts into my head, inject these thoughts into my head, and I quickly realized how weak I was, how run I was by these automatic functions, right? And it's quite difficult to put into words because the journey is kind of the way you learn, and every person's journey is different. So there's been many points where I felt I've got it sorted. I found the thing that you know is going to make me right. That I'm not controlled about this anymore. Okay, I do things because I want to do them. This is me making the choice. And then I quickly realized that that again is another way of controlling me. And actually the truth is that this kind of battle we have with our mental health, you know, in life, with its ups and downs, never ends. And people will be like, God, that's flipping depressing. But it's not really, because life doesn't owe us anything. Like in our the life that us humans live, we think it does. We think we should have these, we should have it easy. Why am I so hard done by? Why am and this is obviously fed by social media and looking at other people who seem to have it easy, but you don't know because you're looking at it through a very narrow viewpoint. Everything's manipulated nowadays, and manipulated to get your attention, because attention has become a currency now, right? And your phone is the kind of sucker for that. And what I've found is that you kind of go through these patterns, and the time when you feel like you have it sorted and you've got it made is the most vulnerable time where you can lose it all. And I can talk about this from experience because, for example, stuff like starting Dagger Detailing, right? Dagger Detailing, I started it when I was in the midst of being really ill. I'd lost all kind of direction. I didn't know where I was going or who I was. I definitely couldn't do the things at that time that I'd done before. And to me, at that time, that was really important. You know, my self-worth and like who Phil Jones was everything in my past life. You know, all the trophies, all the accomplishments, you know, kind of like what I looked like. That was like my ego. My ego had made this like image and gone, that's who you are. That's who you are, and that's what gives you worth. And I was like, yes, wait, just keep going. You know, like the next thing I do will be the thing that will bring me satisfaction. And never fucking did. Because that was never the issue. I was always looking externally for self-worth, not internally. And what I realise now is when you look back at your childhood and your early teens, like my big, you know, a lot of people talk about inner child, right? Talking about inner child, like stuff that happened at school that you weren't aware of, and that set you up to have maybe reduced self-worth or triggered against certain things. Mine was, I think when I was like, it was probably like 16, maybe 14 through to kind of like early, like the 20s. Yeah, that is the time where my self-worth got smashed up. And I did what any person who would do that wasn't aware, you know, like a lot of people aren't at that age, and just kind of found something to make myself feel better and went at it. Yeah. And you know, and you know, Dagger Detailing was one of them. And I put all of my effort into it, you know, thinking that this is, you know, put all my effort, all my money into it, all my time into it, thinking that this I made it, you know, like this is it, this is me, you know, like this is my purpose. Until it wasn't, because I was doing it under the wrong pretense. I was doing it for the wrong reason. I wasn't doing it authentically. I was doing it because I wanted to feel better. I also did that with the gym. There used to be a time when I used to be so fit, so driven, so angry. You know, used to get up and jump around, do circuits and do something and be like, this isn't hard enough. And then go put like a 10k vest on and start doing it. Driven by anger. And I was fit. I was in good shape. Better shape than I am now. To the kind of society. But I wasn't happy. I was doing everything under the pretense of anger and shame. And anything you do under the pretense of anger and shame is never going to last, because it's a house built on sand and will collapse somewhere when that sand starts to deteriorate, when that thing you have built it on, you've put all your eggs in one basket, when that thing goes, which it will, because nothing built on materialism and money and consumerism ever lasts. And they all come tumbling down. So what I've learned, and the one thing I've learned loads, probably over the last year actually, like last year was a very mind-opening year for me. I decided that I would stop running from the things and be honest with myself, and be, because I'm always like, I see my life as an onion, you know, and in the center is this issue of self-worth, and this issue of like lack of belief in myself, in my capability of doing things, and that people will accept me for who I am and what I want to do, and my dreams and my passions, you know. And you know, like a lot of people think of doing things, have like a really good idea, and they're like, oh, I don't want to do that because people just laugh at me. And what I've realized is that you can't just go straight there. What a lot of people do, and what I have done also, is try to cover it up with things such as gym, caffeine, starting a business up, you know, jumping down the throat of everything that makes me feel good, gives me a quick kick. Distractions, pretty much. But what I've realised is that to really get to the centre, to really get to what you want to get to, authenticity, this is me, and I'm okay with it. To do that, you need to work on all the things you've built up over the time, all the things that are on top of the onion, surrounding the onion, because you can never get to that center unless you go through the outer shell, and the outer shell is covered with all kinds of crap from your whole life. And that's where honesty comes in. Being honest, so you don't just deal with the things that you want to deal with because they're easy, like doing an exercise at the gym that you know you're great at. It doesn't do anything, doesn't build any muscle. You don't get anything out of doing something that you're good at. You need to find something you're hard at. You know, it's known that you try a different exercise at the gym, it produces growth, muscle growth, and the same mentally as well. And so, yeah, so I started this kind of mission of getting rid of things, and one of the big things for me was caffeine. And what else is it? Caffeine, computer games, and I don't know. Well, and this dagger detailing. Just so I decided to get rid of them all. And I mean, dagger detailing hasn't gone. It's just redesigned itself to come back authentically, you know, so it can be continuous. Because like I said, if you build anything, even self-growth, if you build self-growth on the background of something that can be easily taken away, you're in for a world of pain later on down the line. But if you build it on authenticity, which is the long game, it takes a long time. It requires patience. It requires sacrifice. It requires honesty. But stuff like, for me, caffeine, or hours on my Xbox, or buying stuff, gives me that small dopamine hit, which makes me feel good for a little bit of time, until I realise that I've just let myself down again, and then it just fuels my shame and my disappointment in myself. And I realised this last year, and through all of the videos I was doing and all this kind of stuff, it was all just a big amount of bullshit, because I wasn't doing it honestly. And that's why I try to, now I've come back and I'm doing videos which are meaningful, which are like authentic. You know, I say things now from a place of authenticity, And it's a really interesting point, because I've also asked the question, like I would expect something like, if I was on the other side of this and be like, okay, well, how do you know when you reach authenticity? And I would say, when you naturally and mentally start to push away things that don't align with your authenticity, like like the consumerism of the world, the consumer kind of world. You must have this to be this. You're not anything if you don't buy this. You're not anything if you don't do this. If you haven't got any followers on Instagram, if you haven't got this job, if you haven't got this rank, if you're not doing this, it's like, who made that rule up? Who made that rule up that you're not nothing without those things? It's all just bullshit. And I physically start to get annoyed about things. I'm like, why am I getting so annoyed about this shit? Like, why am I like feeling so uncomfortable around this shit? Like, I want to get out of this situation. Like, I want to get away from this environment. And it's because I'm filtering down the things that don't work for me anymore. And I've done it with people. I've done it with relationships. I've done it with substances. I've done it with hobbies. And some of them I really like to do. But what I'm doing is I'm looking at a bigger picture of where I want to be. Like, this will make me feel good now, but where do I really want to be? Like, is this a positive step in the direction to the target that I want? I'd be like, no, but it's going to make you feel like good now. I know, honestly, that it's not good for me. So when I do it, after the hit is gone, it makes me feel shameful about myself, because I know I've given into it. And this is mental health, and like, it's just a circle. You need to, honesty is a huge thing. You can't have awareness without honesty. Vulnerability. You can't fix anything if you're not vulnerable, because, like I said, you always do the things that are easy for you. Your brain will always take the route of least resistance. But to be really vulnerable is to be like, this is everything, and I'm sorry if it's like really shit, and like, but like, this is everything. Like, and once you are vulnerable, you have nothing to fear, because no one. It's like blackmail. People get blackmailed, and they're paying money and shit and all this kind of stuff, blah 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 blah. No one looked for perk. As soon as that blackmail was over, they can't do shit to them. Once the truth is out, they've lost their power. And it's exactly the same with vulnerability and mental health. And it's that support. Everyone's got that support network around them that they can be vulnerable in. And I found that sometimes the people that are the most supportive are sometimes not the people you expect to be. For example, like family or good friends you've had. Sometimes when you're vulnerable and you go, actually, this is me, this is all of me, the dirty secrets and everything, the mask is off. Actually, I'm like this, real fucked up. They go. They don't stick around. They don't like it, because sometimes that you also drop their luggage. You're like, this is me, and I'm not holding your luggage anymore. Fuck off, pick it back. And they don't like that, because people are funny. That's, for example, you holding their luggage, you're holding their trauma. you know, by being nice and not actually saying to them, actually, this is making me feel like shit. By doing that, that's their that's like their Xbox, their caffeine. You know, you're making them feel good, because if you're holding it, they don't have to. You know, and all of this is like, it is kind of things you learn as you go down your journey, and that's what's so fascinating, and that's why it's so addictive, because you're kind of like coming out of the matrix. You're like, fuck, you know, like you can see clearly. You're like, shit. And this isn't like go sit in the fucking woods hippie shit. This is just life, and you realise that, you know, for so long you're being controlled. But anyway, lots to think about that. I covered lots of subjects. I'm going to try and break them down into little videos, you know, because I know I waffle, but I get passionate and then you can't shut me up. But it's a little taster of what's coming, you know. We're going to hit on all those things and like get into more depth about them, because I just think they're all really, really important. But I hope you're really, really well. I hope you're staying safe. And I hope people are treating you well. Peace. There it is.